morning, Justin. How are you?
Swell.
Good. Well, this has been kind of a crazy time, I know. Have you been getting through it okay with, especially with, what, 3 kids at home?
3 kids and one in school, so we're trying to figure out the dynamics of Zoom education.
Yeah.
So it's been a little rough.
Well, listen, I have been excited to sit down and talk with you since the beginning of this. And let me just start by saying how really thrilled both Rob and I are that we're working with you finally, and couldn't be more excited about this new collaboration with you and your artwork.
Likewise.
What was it, about maybe almost 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, I came down and did a studio visit, and we kind of said, yeah, let's do this. We had a great conversation, talked about both of our backgrounds in art and art history and some of our influences, some of which we could go into today. But I said, yeah, this is great. And you said, well, yeah, the only problem is I don't have any work available right now. I've sold it all.
Yeah.
So
a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. It was music to my ears, but it was frustrating. And so a year and a half, 2 years later, we have some work in the show up right now, AllTogetherNow. And we've sold a piece, so we've broken the ice. And I see it looks like it's been a really productive time for you in the studio. I see a lot of great work behind you, some of which is completely new to me.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time with twin babies and lockdowns, and so it's lent me some interesting time and reflection, and really, what's funny, you see those memes with artists before quarantine, during, and after. It's basically the same picture, just an artist being in their studio doing what they do. So it hasn't affected me all that much in terms of that, but I have gotten some work going.
So let's talk about your work. For anyone who is familiar with my gallery and the sensibility, they know that I show a lot of abstract painting. Some of it has some figurative reference, but your work is immediately something completely different. Not only from what I show, but from what people are used to seeing when you think of figurative work. And I first saw your work, I think at one of the art fairs you were showing, maybe with Ace Gallery or Patrick Painter. I think we went back to Ace.
Right.
It was immediately apparent that you had found your voice as an artist. You had a very unique style and talent. So let's just go back to the beginning a little bit, if I can, just to talk about, how you got started as an artist. Where did you grow up in California?
I did. Yeah. Orange County.
And did you know early on that this was the path for you, or how did this evolve?
Yeah, I figured early on when I was doing drawings for my friends for the yearbook or for their their book sleeves or whatever, and it was I got attention for it, and you go where the love is, and it turns out I was I had some skill, and then I fell in love with basketball, and I started to I guess transmute that passion through outside of the court, through doing portraits of Michael Jordan and sports stars, and so I knew I always wanted to create something, but I didn't know when the art history would and the practice would come together. So I was always trying to do look at it through two lenses. One is what I would like to do is draw and paint, but what was it that I wanted to draw and paint? And I dabbled a little in film, just the visionary way directors were able to create mood. And then I found out, that's a very collaborative endeavor, and I wanted it to be completely mine. And the tactileness of paint was just something you can't get in any other medium. Then I went to college, had a brief stint of just live work areas where I would hone the practice.
College where?
I went to University of Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's where Rob.
What's that?
That's where Rob went as well. Yeah.
So then I went to Claremont, and that's where I really crystallized as far as the vision, and I've just been tunneling that hole ever since. I got an Ace Gallery show right out of graduation, which was really helpful, and it's just ever since then been doing the same thing.
Was Roland Reese the head of the department when you were there?
He wasn't head, but he was definitely a presence.
Yeah. Yeah, I first opened my gallery in Venice in the early 90s. I got to know Roland early on, and the first time we met and sat down together, he had been a teacher at University of Colorado, and I went to Colorado College. One of his students was Dwayne Valentine, who was my landlord at the time in Venice. Right. And another of his students was a teacher of mine when I was at Colorado College, named Jack Edwards. And so Roland and I immediately hit it off, and he started to get a sense of my gallery and my sensibility. And for a long time, he would call me up and he'd say, "Hey, we've got a student that I think would be a great fit for your gallery." So that was always really helpful.
Yeah, I could see that.
I wish I'd gotten a call earlier about you.
Thank you.
Your path has been great. I think the exposure you got through the path you've taken is the perfect way. Was there a breakthrough moment where your work radically changed, or was this kind of a slow, steady evolution? Because your work.
No, there was definitely one breakthrough painting. It was called Space Boy, and that was where I combined all the abstraction that I so loved with the figure, and I somehow made it work through the lens of this new idea of technology and how it affects the human subject and the structure of the human. And so that's when I started really playing with series and starting with one figure and serialing it out to the point where it was almost unrecognizable from the first incantation. So that really started that started me where I was going, and it literally was in one painting. So and that was when I was still in grad school, and we showed that painting and sold the painting at Ace Gallery. So it was gratifying.
What was the idea that was sparked by that one painting? What did you do differently?
I tried to destabilize the viewer by multiplying the sense organs on the face, because the face is so important evolutionarily. We've even developed a whole part of the brain that's devoted to the face, and of course I think it lends to survival if you know this person is mad or angry or insane. So I saw I think it might have been Arabic, but anyway, it was this. It was an ancient painting, and it had I think it was Hindu, and it had these double eyes and double nose, and I kind of was taken aback and felt almost dizzy. I said, that's a great metonym for me. When I would reflect on what, this new social media technology was doing to me personally, fracturing, making me feel, not unified and anonymous at the same time. So I used that on a large scale and then worked out how the flesh would be almost liquid-like, and you're able to see through it to this, the abstract marks that I make, and so I went on with that and just kept evolving.
Yeah, no, it's really dramatic. I mean, when I first started looking at your work, it was hard to look at some of the pieces because you didn't have a sense of it being in focus, and your mind really has to adjust to not trying to bring something into focus when it doesn't have a clear focal point, and you're seeing sort of multiple images. It feels like the problem's with you, and so you're trying to correct it as you're looking at it. And I found that once I let go of that, it made the paintings then I could explore them more because I wasn't trying to bring them into focus. And I liked that real sort of aggressive assault on my senses and how I perceive, and it really made me think about why is this, this really interesting painting hard to look at. And I realized, well, it's because I'm trying to find the focal point, and
right.
Brain is trying to say, well, wait a second, it should be one image, and it's trying to condense it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because it tells us a lot about how we perceive. So many of the artists I find who interest me, their work really is about exploring the effect of perception on how we see reality, and the senses are the conduit to that perception. So if you play with our expectations as you do, it really opens up some interesting insights. For me, it was our need to edit out a lot of information, to perceive reality. I don't know if you've ever had the experience, but I had it vividly one time. I fainted, and as I opened my eyes, I got all this sense information coming in, but it didn't. There was no organizing principle. It just was kind of overwhelming, and I didn't make sense of it. And I think so. What we're always doing, what artists do, is you go through an editing process to make things coherent and comprehensible. And your work gives a lot of information, so there's an assault of too much information almost that I think feels very much of the moment, right? We're
Yeah.
computer age, we are being insulted by too much information. And so when you do that visually, it becomes a really great metaphor for that, to me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's it's really what I was intending on doing, and hopefully that not being the only thing, but leaving a little bit of mystery also through I think certain how would I say, like the certain series I do that bring in the whole the I guess touchy feel of where does religion kind of come in also, and I have this Genuflecting series that I think became interesting to me because of I started reading a lot about kind of the post-human idea, how technology is almost becoming a religion in and of itself. And I started thinking about the old Renaissance and Baroque period where they'd have these genuflecting faces up towards God, and really questioning existence and God. So I brought that in, and I felt like that was a good path to go down, and to start asking more questions than rather than just pointing out that we are flooded with all this information, destabilized and almost broken down by it. So by adding that, I thought it was a good move, and then now I'm returning to the figures and placing them in virtual, almost sci-fi worlds that I find it kind of piquing my interest right now. So it's kind of drawing back from that face and exploring where we are as interiors or the environment. Anyway, that's kind of interesting to me now.
So much like Giacometti's work, which you and I have just both been very inspired by, the particular subject oftentimes is abstracted to a degree where it also becomes a reference for the universal condition. And you have a lot of that quality too in the figures that you choose. This sort of female figure feels specific, as though it is referencing one person, but it also has a universal quality to it. It's not so specific that it can't represent, the notion of individual rather than a particular individual.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. In fact, the first model that I got was specifically taken from the internet, and it was completely anonymous. So I wanted to have just absolutely no connection to this image, and I also wanted it very much androgynous. So it had this. The binaries have been kind of conflated, and in such, I wanted it to become more of a iconic, universal human condition, and now I use a little bit more on the feminine, because what I do to the faces is quite aggressive. So I like that the softness of the female face and kind of getting broken down and slashed up a bit. But anyway, yeah, that to your point, that's exactly where I was started from and continue to go towards.
It's always challenging to me, that having also studied art very seriously and working from a model and a figure. It's difficult when you're working from a two-dimensional image, like an image taken from the internet, to have that sense of space.
Sorry.
Hear that?
Yeah.
So to have that sense of space from a two-dimensional image, I was always interested. It was a much more of a challenge than working from a live model. Is that, and you have such a great sense of volume and spatial depth in your pieces. Has that been a particular challenge for you, or?
That was in the beginning, but that was a love of mine. I really wanted to get that, so it was an endeavor of love, and it was tough for me in the beginning. I think just like any painter in the beginning, kind of honing their craft. But now it's just part parcel of my body now, and it's there, and now I really love the back and forth between that volume and internalized abstraction and dark parts leading to light, and now it's just really now it's just a joy to keep doing. And that I also like kind of coming up with. I did a couple pieces that joined Bridget Riley's op art in the background, kind of moving into and through the subject. And I saw that also as another great metaphor for visual code, moving in and through the body, which was, I thought, apropos of the time. That being, it's the universal language of today, and we all use it in some way or another. So I like bringing up those art historical references and I guess kind of referencing them to my specific point.
Well, the work just is so powerful, and inspires so many of the kinds of ideas and questions that we're talking about right now. I mean, when I look at your paintings, it also really reminds me that what we look at as solid and impermeable when you look at an individual is actually comprised of layers and internal organs, and there's this whole other physicality that we don't see and we don't really think about unless we're reminded of it. So I often wonder if doctors look at people in a crowd, at a cocktail party, knowing all of this, what's underneath the surface, if it completely changes their perception. And certainly when I look at your paintings, it has that same kind of sense of reminding that it's not just all on the surface. There are these layers and components that are very much part of that structure.
Right. In fact, I was, I think that specific idea really was born from, I absolutely fell in love with Da Vinci when I was a young kid, and him bringing those dead bodies in and opening them up, and even the pregnant womb with the baby inside, that stuck with me up until even today. And so I feel like I am in some way referencing that kind of autopsy feel, but with more of a metaphorically speaking. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to come down and do another studio visit. It looks like it'd be a good time for it. There's
Absolutely.
a lot I'm seeing behind you. So, well, Justin, it is fantastic to sit down and talk with you. Let's when we are able to do a show that features more of your work than just the one or two pieces that we have here in the gallery, I think it'd be really fun to sit down and do a panel and kind of flesh out some of these ideas more, because I love talking to you about your inspirations. We share a lot of the same artistic inspirations. I know we didn't touch on it today, but Francis Bacon is another one who distorts the figure in ways that are really compelling. And
yeah, excellent.
All right. Well, listen. Have a great rest of the weekend. Stay safe and stay sane with your young family. And let's talk in the next week or so. And I'd love to come down and do a visit.
Cool. Wonderful.
All right. Thanks so much, Justin. Take care.